women of the British royal family had their hearts shattered by the same kind of betrayal. One was Alexandra of Denmark, the other, Diana Spencer. Both were faithful wives, devoted princesses, queens, or almost queens, who shared their beds with pain and silence. And both were betrayed by men who loved someone else. And those someone else's had more in common than you might think. The first was the official mistress of King Edward VII. He carried on an extramarital affair in plain sight, while his wife, Alexandra, endured public humiliation for the sake of royal stability. The second was Camilla Parker Bowles, mistress to Prince Charles, who would later become King Charles III, with Camilla crowned queen by his side. He never hid where his true affections lay, even as Diana wept alone in the palace halls. But here's the most astonishing part. Camilla is the great-granddaughter of the other. The pain of Alexandra and Diana wasn't just similar. It flowed through the same bloodline, as if fate had chosen to repeat sorrow, with different names, in different times. My loves, in today's video, we bring you another story from the fascinating world of British royalty, a world that never ceases to surprise us. And if you're already enjoying this video, if you love the drama of ancient monarchs and you landed here by chance, don't go anywhere. This channel is for you. Today, you'll meet Alice Keppel, the mistress who not only enchanted a king, but sparked a legacy of scandal, power, and forbidden love that still echoes through the British monarchy. Alice Frederica Edmonstone was born on April 29, 1868, in a setting that seemed pulled straight from an old novel, Duntroon Castle in Scotland, a majestic ancestral home her family had lived in since the year 1425, thanks to a royal grant from King Robert III. She was the daughter of Admiral Sir William Edmonstone and Mary Elizabeth Parsons, the youngest of 11 children, though only 9 survived past infancy. Her family belonged to an ancient aristocratic line with roots stretching back to the 13th and 14th centuries, tied to the royal courts of both Scotland and England. Her maternal grandfather had been governor of the Ionian Islands, proof of the noble legacy that coursed through her veins. Yet despite their noble blood, the Edmonstones struggled financially, a contrast between the grandeur of the past and the reality of the present. Her father, Sir William, was a British naval admiral and a conservative politician, but their family fortune did not match their social rank. They split their lives between Edinburgh, Duntroon, and an annual stay in Belgravia, London, though under circumstances more modest than high society would ever admit. From a young age, Alice stood apart from other girls of her class. She disliked formal lessons, preferred playing outdoors, chatted freely with servants and stable hands, and carried herself with what many called masculine manners. Her sisters saw her as loud, stubborn, and defiant, a girl determined to get her way. Yet she had a unique power over her father, almost hypnotic. In his rare melancholic moments, he found comfort in his favorite daughter. She knew how to bend the strict rules of the era and earned more freedom than her sisters ever could. Alice grew up defying convention. She smoked cigarettes, loved politics, and had a sharp, pragmatic mind few expected from a young Victorian aristocrat. Her nickname was Freddie, a nod to her middle name, Frederica, but also a reflection of her bold, unfeminine spirit. In the year 1886, at the age of 18, Alice was officially introduced to society and immediately became a sensation in London's elite circles. Her beauty was captivating. Striking blue eyes, glossy chestnut hair, a slender figure, and confident posture that made her the most sought-after hostess of her generation. But to Alice, beauty was just the beginning. Behind her charm and smile was a strategist, a woman ready to use her magnetism to climb the social ladder. And for that, she would break every rule she had to. She wasn't rich, but she knew how to move among the wealthy. Coming from a proud Scottish royal lineage, Alice Keppel refused to play a secondary role in anyone's story. After rejecting several suitors, she married the Honorable George Keppel at 23, son of the 7th Earl of Albemarle. A noble name, but not a wealthy one. The marriage was, above all, a social investment, as she gained status. He gained a wife with enough ambition and brilliance for them both. George left the army and tried his hand at business, without much success. Still protected by the family name, he remained a respectable figure. They had 2 daughters, Violet, born in 1894, and Sonia, born in 1900, who would later become the grandmother of Camilla Parker Bowles, future Queen Consort of the United Kingdom. But even before Violet's birth, rumors already swirled around Alice. It was whispered that she was having an affair with Ernest Becket, a notorious womanizer and powerful widower, and that he might be Violet's true father. Later, an even bolder rumor would surface, that King Edward VII was Violet's biological father, a claim impossible to prove, since they hadn't even met at the time. But none of it weakened her. On the contrary, the scandals only seemed to amplify her social magnetism. Alice knew how to play the game. She was fun, elegant, witty, and irresistibly shrewd. She never hid her taste for powerful men. Her extramarital romances were whispered about in London drawing rooms, though always with a blend of admiration and envy. This wasn't just about passion. Alice craved power, and with power came everything she dreamed of: status, diamonds, Parisian gowns, invitations to the finest salons, and above all, influence. She knew her husband, George, could never give her those things. But she also knew he wouldn't stand in her way. George was indulgent. He once said, "I don't care what she does, as long as she comes back to me at the end of the day." And with that kind of silent agreement, Alice set out to make her boldest move yet, to seduce the most powerful man in the British Empire. The plan was careful. They moved to Portman Square, an elegant neighborhood near the Duke of York's home, and just steps away from the Prince's London residence. It didn't take long for Alice to start turning heads at dinners, horse races, and parties where her elegance and charm were precisely measured. Edward, known to his inner circle as Bertie, was 56, overweight, and feeling the consequences of a lifetime of excess. Alice was 29. To him, she was a breath of fresh air, smart, composed, alluring. She wasn't his first mistress, not even close. Edward was famous for his insatiable appetite: women, wine, pleasure without restraint. But Alice was different. She didn't beg for attention. She offered ease. She was charming, without groveling, clever, without arrogance, and above all, discreet. The prince had been married since 1863 to Alexandra of Denmark, a woman known for her serene beauty and her almost saintly patience. For decades, Alexandra endured her husband's affairs in silence. She had already survived names like Lily Langtry and Daisy Greville, but nothing would prepare her for Alice Keppel. Because Alice wasn't just another mistress, she was a constant presence, the informal advisor, the woman the king asked to see when he was ill, bored, or anxious. Before long, she became nearly inseparable from the prince's private life, even with Alexandra still at his side. Left with no alternative, Alexandra accepted Alice, inside the royal palace itself, where she was treated as a frequent guest. It was a public humiliation. But Alexandra, who always put the crown above her heart, chose silence once more. Alice, for her part, played her role to perfection. She never stirred scandal. She never tried to compete with the wife. She knew her place and expanded it with grace. Her presence helped calm the prince's tempers, his excesses, his self-destructive impulses. She didn't just love him, she managed him. And in doing so, she gained power. Alice began to influence political conversations. She introduced allies. She protected friends. And of course, protected herself. She had now become the official mistress of the future King of England, and she did so with a refinement that even the most hypocritical of critics could admire. After Edward ascended the throne in 1901, Alice's discretion became priceless. She was now the perfect go-between, bridging the king and his ministers. She had a gift, a singular ability to present matters in a way that caught his attention. Even when there was disagreement, she made him listen. The Viceroy of India once remarked, "There were times the king disagreed with the Foreign Office, but through her, I was able to persuade him to accept the government's policy." Yet behind the smiles, the drama never stopped. Alexandra watched her marriage collapse before the eyes of the world. With time, Alice became more than the other woman. She was almost part of the royal family. Almost. But that almost would come at a price. Edward VII, or as Alice and her daughters fondly called him, Bertie, or simply Kings, became a regular figure in their home. It wasn't unusual to see him there, sitting with the girls, playing with little Sonia, betting on which slice of buttered bread would slide faster down her legs. To the girls, the King of the United Kingdom was a fun, charismatic uncle. To Alice, he was everything. Their relationship was always wrapped in mystery and whispers. Some swore that Sonia, born in 1900, was Bertie's child. But the truth? No one knows for sure. Many claim that the king, by then weakened, didn't even have the strength to maintain a physical relationship. But Alice was more than desire. She was brilliance. She was presence. She was the only antidote to the king's storms of bad temper, and to his crushing loneliness. She understood him. She knew he preferred to listen, not to speak. So she always came prepared, with gossip, with news, with politics, with care. As Queen Alexandra withdrew into distance, isolated by her deafness and cold emotional reserve, Alice stepped into the space she had left behind. She became the king's confidant, his counselor, his companion. She was the woman who always knew what to say and what to keep to herself. But not even love, or whatever bound them, could stop time. In the spring of 1910, while traveling in the south of France, the king fell seriously ill. Alice, frantic, wrote to a friend, "The king's cold is so bad, he can't dine with us. I'm truly worried." She urgently summoned a nurse. She was terrified he might die there, far from home, with only his mistress by his side. But Bertie came back, alive. Though defeated, he continued his excesses, smoking, overeating, and Alice tried in vain to convince him to take care of himself. She was not a woman to set limits. She was indulgent, the one who welcomed and soothed. The servants said the king devoured his food without chewing, and the noises at the table echoed through the palace halls. A sad image for a monarch in decline. The queen? She was far away, on a Mediterranean cruise with her daughter, unaware, or pretending not to know, the seriousness of the situation. When she returned to London, urgently called back, it was already too late. In the final days of his life, Edward summoned his trusted banker. He asked for money, £10,000 in cash, a final gift for Mrs. George, as he called Alice. And he dictated a letter. He wanted to see her one last time, to thank her for everything, to say goodbye. With that letter in hand, Alice went to the palace, but her arrival caused a silent earthquake. Alexandra saw her and expelled her. Cold, rigid. But Alice, resolute, handed over the letter. It was the king's wish, and the queen relented. The moment is described differently depending on who tells it. Alice said that the dying king asked the queen to give her a kiss, in the name of friendship, and that Alexandra promised to take care of her. But other sources, less kind, claim they only exchanged a cold handshake, and that the queen turned toward the window, ignoring her rival completely. Whatever the truth, when the king died, Alice collapsed. She screamed, she cried, saying there was never anything wrong between us. A phrase many took as either confession or denial, perhaps both. On May 6, 1910, the king died, and with him, the world where Alice Keppel was someone died too. She lost her lover, her friend, her king, but more than that, she lost her place. The woman who knew how to calm the monarch, who knew when to speak and when to be silent, was ripped from the stage like a mistake to be swept under the rug. But neither time, nor the whispers of the court, could erase the mark she left behind. Because Alice Keppel was, yes, the mistress of a king, but above all, she was a woman who knew how to occupy a place of power, even if it was forbidden. After Edward VII's death, Alice Keppel's world simply faded away. In an instant, she stopped being the closest woman to the King of the United Kingdom, to become a shadow. No one wanted to talk about her. No one wanted to see her. The monarchy needed silence, appearance, order. And Alice was, after all, an uncomfortable reminder of everything the court wished to bury. But she was not the type to fade away easily. With discretion and intelligence, Alice Keppel withdrew from public life. She did not fall from grace. On the contrary, she used the time and money the king had left her to invest in what she valued most, her family. In November 1910, just months after Edward's death, she and her family left Great Britain. Officially, it was for the education of her daughters. In practice, Alice had been pushed out of the center of power with the death of her royal lover. Without Bertie, there was no place for her in the machinery of the monarchy. The family spent 2 years traveling through Southeast Asia and Sri Lanka, trying to start over, both geographically and emotionally. But the past, intimate and turbulent, followed her wherever she went. And the present brought challenges too, and new scandals. Only this time, it was not Alice who made the headlines. Her daughter, Violet Trefusis, began to carve her own path, as provocative as her mother's. A talented writer, Violet became known for her intense passions, especially her stormy relationship with Vita Sackville West, an aristocrat, writer, and married woman. Their love was tempestuous, too public, and emotionally destructive. Alice opposed it firmly, not because of her daughter's sexuality, but because she feared the scandal would damage Violet's social standing. In Alice's mind, there was a silent rule in aristocracy. Certain things could happen, as long as they were discreet. Years later, Violet became involved with Winnaretta Singer, heiress to the Singer sewing machine fortune. This time, Alice didn't protest. Winnaretta was wealthy, powerful, and discreet, and their relationship seemed much more stable. For Alice, it was a relief. Finally, Violet found love with less drama and more protection. During the First World War, Alice sought a new role, helping her friend Lady Sarah Wilson manage a hospital for wounded soldiers in Boulogne. From entertaining in palaces, she moved to caring for the injured, remaining useful even if out of the spotlight. In 1925, Alice and her husband George bought a new home, the imposing Villa dell'Ombrellino in Bellosguardo, the romantic hill of Florence. A palace with history, once inhabited by Galileo Galilei and other great names. Alice redesigned the gardens with winding paths, naming the space the Union Jack Garden. There, she rebuilt her life as a lady of European high society, hosting exiled kings and queens, aristocrats, and even Winston Churchill. Her dinners were elegant and discreet, a reflection of a woman who knew how to reinvent herself. In 1936, upon hearing of King Edward VIII's abdication, while dining at the Ritz Hotel, Alice reportedly said, "Things were done much better in my day." A simple phrase, but heavy with nostalgia and melancholy, from someone who knew power up close and knew how to tame it with charm and intelligence. During the Second World War, the Keppels returned temporarily to the United Kingdom, but in 1946 they went back to Italy. On September 11, 1947, Alice Keppel died at home, a victim of liver cirrhosis at 79 years old. And even in that quiet grave, fate had one last unexpected twist in store. Decades later, her great-granddaughter, Camilla Rosemary Shand, daughter of her granddaughter Sonia, would win the heart and marry none other than Prince Charles, now King Charles III. Yes, the woman who had once been thrown out of a king's bed, amidst screams, for being the other woman, left descendants to sit on the British throne. What was once scandal became lineage. What was once forbidden became history. And what was once whispered in court salons is now in official books. Camilla, known for her sharp wit, reportedly said to Charles the day they met, "Did you know my great-grandmother was the mistress of your great-great-grandfather?" At the end of her life, Alice avoided speaking of the past with Bertie, perhaps out of pain, perhaps out of respect. No statues, no titles, she left something more powerful, a lineage, and a lesson that still echoes in the heart of British royalty. 2 months after her death, her husband George passed away. He said he couldn't live without her after 56 years of marriage. Both were buried side by side in the Evangelical Cemetery degli Allori in Florence.